somebody out there may only hear the message that you're sharing from you, that it may only resonate because it's coming from you, because of the way you do things and because of your life story. So imagine what kind of impact you can have if you just choose to step out and show yourself and believe in your uniqueness and in your gifts, and realize that visibility is not it's not about being selfish or being self-centered. It is really about giving people the permission to be who they are.
Welcome to Small Acts of Rebellion, a podcast where the unspoken narratives at the intersection of our personal and professional lives come to light. I'm your host, Heather Pridemore, your guide on this journey of discovery and defiance. Join me as we uncover the rebellious spirit that shapes our careers and lives. It's time to own your story. Are you ready? Marta Spirk is a wife, triplet mom, recording artist, TEDx speaker, author, and visibility strategist. She empowers women entrepreneurs to be seen by standing out on social media, stages, TV, and more, so they increase visibility, credibility, and profit. She does that with her podcast, The Empowered Woman, her book, The Empowered Woman, The Ultimate Roadmap to Business Success, and more visibility mastermind and coaching programs. Welcome to the show, Marta.
Thank you so much for having me.
So similar to another recent guest, Marta and I are in a group called She Leads together. And so that is how we met. But I actually recently got a little bit of a teaser, an amuse-bouche, if you will, of Marta actually presenting. And it was so great. So if you have a chance to see Marta present, I highly recommend it. Great voice, very engaging storyteller. So just, 10 out of 10, highly recommend that if you get a chance to see Marta speak, that you do.
Oh, thank you.
So I actually think, Marta, that's probably a great place for us to start our conversation, because you gave a TED Talk, and that was in 2022, and it was titled The Transformational Power of Defeat. What was the main idea behind this concept, and what inspired you to choose this focus?
Yeah. So originally when I applied for TEDx, for that specific one, I had suggested the transformational power of grief. And the idea behind it was grieving the life that I had known before, or grieving the plans I had made for myself that didn't pan out. And this is a story that I tell in the TEDx. Now, once we, started refining the talk and building the talk after I was selected, they asked me to change it to defeat, because typically when people think about grief, they think about death. And even though I was talking about figuratively, right, the death of the plans I had made for myself, we went with defeat, which ended up working really well in terms of turning it around for the audience and asking them, what was something that you perceived as a defeat in your life, but it turned out to success? Because it's all a matter of perspective, right? Sometimes things don't go as planned, but there's always that silver lining. It didn't happen because something better was about to happen. So what was that? And it's our choice to look for those things, right? This didn't work, but what did I learn from this experience? Had this not happened, I wouldn't have had this lesson, or had met this person, or made this connection. And now look at where I am. So that's the inspiration behind it all, because of my life story, which we'll get into.
Yeah. So when I saw you present recently, Marta, you kind of gave us a little preview of how that talk opened, and you talked about the 3 circles, and it was such a interesting way to sort of jump right into a story. But I was hoping that for those listening, you might just kind of give a little bit of a teaser like you did the other day.
Yeah. So my TEDx, I started with, I saw 3 circles on the screen and the confusion began. And the 3 circles were the 3 gestational sacs on an ultrasound screen when I first learned I was pregnant with triplets. And you can imagine, for anyone who is a parent out there, how when you're trying to conceive and it's, not working out right away, whenever you hear the news that you're pregnant, that it finally happened, you get so excited and you read all the books and you prepare as much as you can. But then what a plot twist for it to be 3 right off the bat. And, starting to experience right then and there the guilt of, I wanted a child, but I didn't necessarily want 3. So does that make me a monster, that I'm not grateful for this, but I am? but I'm also very scared. So that was the whole idea of, feeling defeated. Like I didn't even have the chance to practice being a mom of one. And now I have to do it for three. I don't know that I want that. I don't know that I can do that. But here I am 8 years later doing it.
Well, and Marta, you didn't just, have three babies. You also started a business. So can you talk a little bit about the complexity of, all kind of having this confusion about triplets and then also deciding to start a business around the same time?
Yeah, I now see, 8 years later, that me starting a business was my own attempt of finding some sort of control over my life, because having triplets really meant I have no control. And that's with having one child, as you know, right? Like all of a sudden it's this being outside of yourself, and you would do anything for it's pretty much like it is you, but it's not you because it has its own desires and needs. Starting my business was my way of understanding myself better. So that was the other part of having triplets that was so hard for me, was how in the world am I going to give the love and attention that an individual deserves from their mother, literally one of me? How can I really foster their individuality and help them become the best version of themselves when I'm doing it all at the same time? And that's when I realized, well, I have to start with myself. The more I understand myself, the better version of myself I can be. That's what they're getting ultimately. And then I will be able to go ahead and love them and nurture them and do all that. So that has been the journey. And obviously, there were so many other things that came into play. So I have a background in languages. That's what I had done my whole life. I'm from Brazil. I started speaking English pretty young and started teaching English pretty young. So my entire life before triplets was I am the language lady. So I can teach it, I can translate it, I can interpret it. But then after having the kids, I decided, that's not really what I want to do. It's like a new chapter had begun, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. And it started with I need to understand myself more. So then the path automatically went into coaching and personal development and personal growth, because that was where I was at as a person. And being a teacher for so long, I can't be learning about something and not teaching it at the same time, which they say the best way to learn something is to teach it anyways. So I really take that to heart. And my coaching business started with personal development, personality types, right? Understanding yourself to the core. Why do I do the things I do? Because I felt a lot of guilt as well into pursuing something different or pursuing anything at all while having triplets. Like, who does that? This is the moment for you to be 100% dedicated to them. But I saw it in a different light. I saw I need to look at myself to be able to nurture them. And not many people in my family understood or supported that in the beginning, I will say. So that was a little tough. But that's how the coaching started. And it's beautiful to see how it's evolved into me now helping women really understand themselves and then showcase that through their business, because that's how it all started with me.
Now, we recently were having a conversation, Marta, and you said something that I thought was I don't know, interesting. You said you can't sell a secret. Could you just talk a little bit about what that means to you?
In the entrepreneurial space, right? I mean, in any way, I always say we're always selling. We're always selling. We're selling vegetables to our kids. We're selling eating out to our spouses because we don't want to cook. We're negotiating things constantly. If you're doing a job interview or whatever it may be, but especially in the entrepreneurial space, you're selling, offers, programs, products, and things like that. And the biggest setback that I notice with entrepreneurs is putting themselves out there. They expect people to just come, right? What's the saying that says, build it and they will come? It doesn't so much work like that. You have to talk about it and you have to show why it is valuable. You have to remind people of why they need what you have to offer. And that's where you can't sell a secret comes into play. If you keep your offers and the benefits of what you have to offer a secret, no one will get it. And then you become selfish, right? If you really believe in the power of your gifts and the things you have, then you need to get over yourself, because that's a lot of that too. Get over yourself, your insecurities, and really realize that it's not about you. It's about service. It's about, doing what you were put on this earth to do in supporting people with your uniqueness and not really worrying if somebody's going to be offended or somebody's not going to like you, because that's going to happen along the way as well. So it's really, really believing that what you have it's worthy of being shared, because that's what it boils down to, right? When you're being afraid of coming off salesy or whatever it may be, you are making it about you, right? Instead of, no, people actually need this. So I am going to swallow my pride or insecurity or whatever it may be, and I'm going to talk about it. And that's why I've been really focusing on visibility and saying, this is the number one thing that every business owner needs, because you can't tell a secret.
Well, I think that's a great segue, Marta, because I was hoping that you would talk a little bit more about how you became a visibility strategist and what motivated you to focus on that particular area. Because you've already sort of addressed the fact that you sort of started more in the personal development space, but eventually you evolved into this visibility strategist. And so could you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah. So the big divider of waters was 2020 in many ways, because that's when people really started mirroring back to me the fact that I had a gift for showing up. Because that was the year when, if you ever wanted to give up on something or stop something, that was the year. That was the biggest excuse, right? I can't, because now, I've been reflecting. I've been spending a lot of time indoors, and now I want to make a change in my life. And that was when I actually went more serious with my business, because I had less time. The kids weren't going to preschool anymore. And I had like literally 1 or 2 hours a day where I could sit on my computer and be like, what am I going to create today? What am I going to sell? How am I going to make money? And people started asking me, how in the world are you still creating content and showing up online and showing up happy, and showing up, as yourself? And then I realized there was something to that. And I gave myself some credit too, in terms of everything I had learned being a communicator and having degrees in communication for so long, and being like, I'm really good at writing things. I'm very creative, and I'm very determined and motivated, and people see this. So how can I encapsulate this and sell this? And I started helping people with content creation and saying, you have a lot to say, but you don't know where to start. So oftentimes entrepreneurs will be like, I don't know what to say. Well, if you have business and offers, you do have things to say, because you literally have clients that you serve. So let's organize this and let's find somewhere to start and how to keep going every day, every week. So it started with marketing. And at first, I felt a little insecure, like total imposter syndrome, when people would be like, oh, so basically you help people with marketing. It's like, no, I don't have a degree in marketing. How could I? How could I help people with this? But then I started accepting that term. So I would call myself a marketing strategist. So I'll help you with content creation. But in my own business trajectory, I started investing in other things, like doing keynote presentations, doing a TEDx. I published my own book. I have my own podcast. So I realized I could teach people these other things too, because again, I am a teacher at heart. So if I learned something, even if I'm not the like 100% expert and have degrees on it, I will share with you what I did. So if it works for you, awesome. So I started helping women apply to TEDx's, create a framework to put in their books. And then people started calling me the visibility queen. Again, I've been taking lots of clues from my own audience and my network, and then being like, if they're seeing me this way, why can't I see me this way? And this is the same thing that happened with music, which I'm sure we'll talk about. I need to start seeing myself this way and start calling myself that, because if people are already seeing, once I come out and I say, this is who I am, that's when it's not a secret anymore, right? So I started saying, I help you with visibility, which it turns out is a lot more attractive than marketing, because many entrepreneurs dread marketing for the same reasons, right? I don't have a degree. How can I market myself? I have a degree for whatever it is that you coach on. I'm a financial expert, whatever. I'm not good at marketing. And it's like, no, you're an entrepreneur. You have to be able to market yourself. And it's all a skill anyways. So then I transitioned into saying visibility, and people have been more interested, because when I say I can help you as a business owner to get more visible, oh yes, I need that. Everybody needs that, regardless of how much money they're making. You could use more visibility. So it's worked out in my favor.
Yeah, Marta, I wanted to ask you about because to me this also has a little bit of overlap where, we talk a lot about personal branding, and especially I guess just to reference my own story, I left the corporate world, last year, early last year, and I came out into the world and realized I had not done a good job up to that point of personal branding. I was well known across my clients and my colleagues, and I had a good reputation, but I didn't really have much in the way of personal branding. And so as I've been working in my own coaching domain in the career development space, I've been really encouraging people to think about personal branding from a position of intentional authenticity. So, and you mentioned authenticity. I guess I'm wondering what strategies or concepts you think would be relevant to someone who's in the career, still working a W-2 job. They're not an entrepreneur, but they're thinking about that personal branding in the career space. Are there any takeaways from what you train entrepreneurs that might be helpful to them?
Yeah, so I really love personality assessments and any tool that can help you understand yourself better. In fact, I believe this should be widespread, encouraged in schools, everywhere. Like, what makes you you? Let's encourage people to get curious about who they are, because that's how you're going to figure out what career you want to pursue to begin with. I mean, thinking back, I knew what I was really good at from a young age. So I feel really, really privileged because I already knew my path was languages to begin with. And then things shifted a little. But it's common as a 17, 18-year-old, you have no clue what you're going to do. And I believe that if we encouraged people to ask themselves more questions and be okay with the fact that not everybody wants to be a doctor. Not everybody, wants to be whatever. And one of the tools that has really helped me is the Enneagram. So it's a personality framework. There's 9 different types. And it's not only just a test, but it's really something for you to study and understand human behavior and psyche, which is so fascinating that some people are really wired to do things a certain way. And that's their gift, right? So, people tell me, oh, you sing so beautifully. And I will tell you, I can't make a spreadsheet to save my life. And in many ways, I have blamed myself for that. Why can't I be that person that creates everything color coded? This is not my gift. And now at 37 years old, I'm okay with saying, I can't really write a poster with straight, beautiful handwriting. This is not my gift. Growing up in school, I had those friends that were like, Marta, you're not going to be in charge of doing this because you're not that great at it. And I would get butthurt. And it's like, that's okay. I have other gifts. So, what an amazing gift to teach our kids, right? To tell them you're good at other things. So don't beat yourself up. Anyway, so I think the Enneagram or any other personality framework, I love all of them. And I think they all complement each other, like Gallup, Clifton Strengths, whatever other ones that are out there, Myers-Briggs, DISC. I will take all of them. And I think it's never, you can never do too many of them because it gives you a different insight, or talk to different professionals that do it too, because they have their own lens because they're unique. So they will give you a different insight based on what they learned. I think getting curious about yourself is one of the best things you can do to develop your own personal brand and to stand out, because that's what makes you stand out, is you being unique. There's literally nobody else on this earth. And I say this, especially with having triplets, granted, none of them are identical, but born the same day, raised by the same people. This goes to show how unique we all are. So what are we doing to foster that and showcase that?
I want to ask you, Marta, because I'm sure this shows up in your work as well. But when you're working with people, some people are extroverted, some people are introverted, some people have we'll call them hang-ups about social media. Like, they know they need to show up, but they feel like, it's a little bit like peacocking or something to put themselves on the internet. And for those folks, my approach has typically been to try to find a way to do what needs to get done, but in a way that feels relatively comfortable. I mean, I don't think you can use the fact that, like, for example, not, putting yourself on social media, like saying, oh, well, I don't do that because it doesn't feel comfortable. Sometimes in the case of personal branding, we have to do something that's outside of our comfort zone, but we want to do it in a way that feels natural to who we are. And so do you have any thoughts or perspective on that from the work that you've done?
Yes, definitely. And I really support clients in pretty much the way that you said. You don't have to do it the way that I do it, but you have to do something. And you have to find something that feels good, but you also need to challenge yourself a little bit. And you are only going to know by experimenting. So you're not going to be visible in your mind. I always say this, you can't get visible in your mind. You have to try and put yourself out there. But then you have perfectionism problems, right? Of, oh my gosh, you put all of the weight of your entire existence into one single post. And it's like, you can't do that because it's going to go away. People are not going to know about it in a few days anyway. So get over yourself. Again, get over yourself. Put it out there because it's not about you. Somebody's going to see it. Somebody's going to get encouraged. And oftentimes this is what happens. People will, see you in person and say, wow, I really enjoyed your post. They never liked it. They never commented it. You never even knew that they saw it, but they are seeing it. So it's about really being okay with experimentation. And that was one of the things that I heard early on from one of my mentors that really stuck with me is owning a business. It's like really being a scientist. It's like, I'm going to get curious. So getting curious about yourself, but getting curious about what will work instead of putting the pressure of this has to work. It's let's see what happens. Obviously, let's gather data and information to then take your next action step, but have fun in the process. What will happen if I put this post here? Oh, not many people resonated with it, which sometimes the likes and the comments don't really reflect on that, but that's okay. What can I do next? And finding a groove, finding your own groove, but you're only going to find your groove if you do it. So gotta do something.
Yeah, I'd encourage people to consider too that just because you're not getting maybe like the likes or, the comments, you would be surprised to what Marta just said, like how often people are seeing you. I mean, even in my own posting, someone will, connect with me, we'll have a conversation, and they're like, I see you everywhere. But they've not liked or engaged or commented on a single post. So you just don't know who is like watching, and the metrics don't necessarily indicate the impact of what you're putting out there, And so I think consistency, intentionality, and authenticity are really like fundamental to how you approach your own personal branding, and I'm speaking more from like the career space, but it sounds like Marta from the entrepreneur space and the visibility space, some similar characteristics.
It's the same thing. And I love that you use the word impact because it's that, right? You never know who you are impacting by just existing, but we have the gift of social media right now. So you literally don't know who's seeing it and whose lives you can be changing because you decided to put something out there and detach, right? From how many likes, how many comments, or whatever instant gratification you're looking for. And it's that belief in your own message, right? I feel so excited about this message that I want to share it. And if one person resonates, awesome. That's amazing. That already validates the whole point of me putting it out there.
Marta, before we shift topics, you had mentioned earlier that you knew from a young age, like who you were, what you wanted to do. And I was just wondering, in reflecting on your youth, how did visibility or personal branding kind of show up for you at a young age?
Early on, it was very evident to me that I wanted a lot of attention. And this came, I'm the youngest child, and I heard so many stories growing up about how I was always performing. And I remember that too. Like I would carry back in the day, the little boom boxes with the CDs, and I would announce to whoever was in whatever room, I am going to sing you a song. So you're going to have to watch me. I remember at one point, my grandpa broke his leg. And so he was my really captive audience. Like he had no choice because he had nowhere to go. So I would be performing for him all the time. And I really enjoyed it. Obviously, there was the downside of people saying, Marta, tone it down. You're wanting too much attention, or you're stealing your older sister's thunder. Because my sister was 4 years old when I came along. It's almost like she was an only child for a little bit there. And I've realized this about myself. I've always wanted to perform. And this is one of the things that the Enneagram has also helped me see, is that it's hard to pinpoint what you were born with or what your environment really created, because I really think it's a combination. It's hard to say, was I born to just be this performer? Or did I realize I needed to demand my space because I came in second and there was somebody else already there? I don't know. I think it's really a combination of both. But I was the singer, performer extraordinaire right off the bat. And I really pride myself in that as well, in saying I have learned really from since 1986 that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So I ask for what I want. This is something that I really differ from my sister. And she has her own personality type and the way that she does things. But I am not afraid to ask for the things that I want. And that's why I teach what I teach right now. If you don't say, no one will know. So please say it.
Yeah, Marta, that brings up a really great point because when you said, I ask for what I want, that's such an important aspect of self-advocacy. And so, I mean, what I'm now piecing together is that this visibility, this personal branding is just another form of self-advocacy. And I think that that's really powerful. Now, you just mentioned your singing, and I do want to shift topics here just a bit. You've been embracing your identity as a performer and a singer, like kind of more recently. So you've been singing for a long time, but again, you're kind of more like taking on that identity. So how has your role as a performer integrated and complemented your role as a visibility strategist?
Oh, it's been such a shift in many ways because I feel like I am relearning or in many ways starting from scratch, which is not true. But I am experiencing certain things that I experienced early on in my coaching and that my clients experience. And that at times, because I've been over it for a while, it's like, it doesn't matter, just put yourself out there. Now I empathize more because it's like, oh, I get it. It's scary. That's why you're not doing it. Because in adding music to it, it is more vulnerable in many ways. I've been used to speaking, like I can get up and I can speak, but then with music, it's like, am I going to forget the words? When you're just talking and improvising, cough or something and keep going. Or crack a joke and keep going. So there is more vulnerability in that sense. Like, is my voice going to crack? Is somebody out there judging me that I'm not the best singer? So I've been having to coach myself through that as well. And then realize, same way that I have coached clients with, speaking, I'm doing that with the singing, which is it's really one and the same. Being in front of people is you are already braver than anyone sitting in the audience. Period. Right. So whoever's sitting there judging you, well, they're not upfront and they're not doing what you're doing. And there's, some memes or quotes that go around the internet that I really like that say there are people less qualified than you successful out there. Why? Because they decided to go and do it. So that goes to show that you don't have to be the most qualified to make things happen. You just have to do it. And again, it won't happen in your mind. You are going to literally go out there. And that's the scary part because you may get judged. You may get rejected. Right. But it's all lessons and it's all learning. But to answer your question, it's been interesting to see how musical opportunities have been coming along so much more effortlessly, even than the coaching. Obviously, because I've built the coaching, I've built the network. People already know me, so it's not like I'm coming out of the gate and saying, "Here, listen to my songs." I have a network. People know me, but it's really showing me how it's something that I'm meant to do, and that complements the message that I bring. Because a lot of the songs that I sing, that I wrote, have to do with showing up, with recognizing your worth, knowing that you are enough the way that you are, because no one else is you. So that's your power. So, and it's a reminder for myself as well, because I'm struggled with all these things. The only difference is when I'm a really big fan of J-Lo. So I'll just add this piece in. And I've been watching one of her, she's recently released an album and a documentary. And she said, I am super scared. And somebody says, it doesn't look like you're scared. And she said, well, this is how I've built my entire career. I've been scared, but I don't let it show. And that's how we're supposed to do this thing called life. Is no one knows what we're doing when it comes to parenting, anything, right? But we got to do it. And that's how we learn.
On the topic of JLo, I know that wasn't like our topic, but on the topic of JLo, I did watch the, I don't know what you call it, the movie, the
Experience.
musical, the experience. Yeah. And I actually enjoyed it. I know that there's been some criticisms of it. I enjoyed it. I also thought that the documentary that went along with it was very interesting. And, whenever I see personally celebrities who come out and say, I struggle with imposter syndrome. I'm dealing with challenges with my inner child. I have, these insecurities in relationships and, all of that stuff. I'm just like, wow, like it makes, I don't know why, when it comes from a celebrity, it always makes me, it puts life in perspective a little bit because, you think that people who are famous have everything all figured out. But in reality, it's not any different than the rest of us. They're dealing with a lot of the same things. And so I really commend JLo for being so vulnerable in that documentary. I mean, I think she shared a lot of really intimate, like, thoughts. And, I think that anyone who hasn't watched it, especially women, should go and watch the documentary and get a little life perspective. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Now, you and I had talked about JLo at one point because you were also talking about how she was sort of taking this approach to visibility through releasing a song and then, releasing another song and then releasing some videos and then releasing the movie or the experience and then releasing the documentary. And so I think that is also an interesting consideration for people who are looking for visibility. Because when you're doing something, it doesn't have to be like a one and done. You can kind of stretch it out, tease it out, break it into little pieces, which I mean is a pretty common approach in marketing, right? Start big, make something small, a bunch of little small things, distribute to the world.
Yeah. And we should be learning from the big people. I forget who it was that told me or where I was that says, Nike's still doing commercials. Coke is still doing commercials. McDonald's is still doing commercials. What makes you think that you're not supposed to be putting out content talking about your offers, right? These companies are super established, but they still need to make money. They don't just sit and wait for people to go and buy their stuff. They still need to be present and relevant. And so that's why they have marketing teams and budgets, and they come up with stuff. Sometimes certain commercials don't work as well. Certain campaigns don't go as well. Well, guess what? They got to try something else again. And you, as a small business owner, whoever's listening, and you did the same thing. And even if you're in corporate, right, you have to come up with ideas and whatever it is that you're proposing. If it doesn't work out, well, back to the drawing board. And that's what we do, like I said, with selling, with everything. Maybe my child didn't like my approach to eating vegetables this time. What can I try next? For them to, you got to keep experimenting and having fun. But it's from a artist's now perspective, watching what JLo did and watching other musicians too, or even, movies that come out. It's been fun because now I'm looking at it from a different angle of being like, wow, I could create these reels to release my next song and do it like she did, or I could, so this is what I did recently is I released a new single and I was going to release my first music video with it. I was like scrambling to get it all recorded. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm not following my own advice. What I do with my coaching offers, let's spread this thing out. Let's milk this baby, 1 month I release the single and then I create another campaign to then release the music video, which is a different format, but it's the same song. So people will be listening to it, but it's going to be different, right? So I've been having all these ideas of like launching merch with the words of the songs. So there's different things you can do and you can get so much inspiration. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, put simply, just watch what other people are doing in your own niche or in other niches and get inspired because it's all art.
Yeah, you made me think of something when you were talking just before this. And I was thinking about people who are in the corporate space. Visibility doesn't always have to come in the form of like social content. It could even be just showing up in the workplace. When you were talking about the commercials and how brands like Coke and everything, they still show up. And so I think what inspired me about that was I thought people who are in the corporate space have to remember that just because you've been doing well, you've worked hard, you got a promotion, whatever it is, you won an award, you still have to keep showing up and trying to find those opportunities to get into the spotlight, because it's very similar to these established brands who are still running commercials, right? You need to remind people you're there and keep advocating for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's really that belief that I matter. What I have to say matters and people need to hear it. And it doesn't matter what role I fulfill, I'm here. And this makes you stand out, right? Even if, again, and the fear of doing that is it may not be received well. People may not like it. Well, you won't know if it's in your head. So put it out there, see what happens, and then you get feedback. And that's the beautiful thing about marketing is that you get feedback. Oh, this didn't resonate. Okay. So how can I do it differently next? It's that fear of not doing it right the first time. Well, guess what? None of us, unless you're an alien, tell me your secret. None of us do it right the first time, right? In fact, if it is amazing the first time, I don't know, something's off. So just be okay with that. Be okay with being a beginner.
I always think about it like prototyping. So coming from the tech background, agile product development, all of that. And often you'll run like a beta or you'll do a prototype to kind of test out an idea. And because marketing, personal branding, visibility is such a both art and science, I do think that if you just go in that mindset that every time you create content, it's just a prototype and it will give you that feedback that you need to then make decisions about future content. And so I don't know, that's what I use to kind of take some of the pressure off, because just like you're saying, there's moments where I create something and I'm like, ooh, this is kind of lame, or I put stuff out there where I was like, I'm going to test this out. It didn't land. I didn't make any more of that. It just, it just let it go.
Exactly. Well, and there are times when you spend some time on something, you think it's so clever and it doesn't really land. So it's really disappointing. And then there are other times that you didn't even think twice. You're like, nah, just do this. And people are all over it. So it really goes to show you don't know until you try. That's the words in one of my songs. You won't know until you try. So go for it.
Love it. Love it. Marta, we are coming to the end of the show. And I love to sort of wrap each episode by saying, if someone said, this was too long, I did not listen, what is like the one thing that you'd want them to take away from this conversation?
Well, oh my gosh, we talked about so many things, but I think it's getting curious about yourself. Really believing that you have something special to share that no one else has, and that somebody out there may only hear the message that you're sharing from you, that it may only resonate because it's coming from you, because of the way you do things and because of your life story. So imagine what kind of impact you can have if you just choose to step out and show yourself. And again, believe in your uniqueness and in your gifts, and realize that visibility is not, you had mentioned about being a peacock, or it's not about being selfish or being self-centered. It is really about giving people the permission to be who they are. So it's really amazing how you being confident in yourself, it's not just benefiting you. It's benefiting people around you because you give them the permission to be confident in themselves too.
I love that. I love that, Marta. Well, thank you so much. This was such a great chat. And I loved having you on the show.
I loved it too. Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed this episode and are seeking to redefine success on your own terms, subscribe to Small Acts of Rebellion and join a community that celebrates authenticity and personal growth.